You met a professor who was working in this field, and you decided to work with her. You joined Angan. Tell us, the first time you went to a children's home, what was your reaction? What did you see there? What was your reaction?
So I'm from an organization called Angan Trust. We work on the issue of child protection. Our work in 2002 started with working in government juvenile homes. At that time they were called remand homes. Now they're called children's homes. So my personal visit. So I had visited earlier, but when we started with our work, so Parna and I, when we used to go into these institutions, we went into Dongri. That's the largest institution in Asia with 500 children. And when we went there, you would imagine that 500 children at playtime, when the bell rings, when everybody's coming back from school, there would be some play. But I think these children had gone through so much trauma, through such a journey of traumatic events, of having to run away from home, escape from violence, abuse. A lot of them were trafficked and sold, had been rescued from child labor, karkhanas. A lot of the children had been given up by their parents because they couldn't take care of them. So when we went, we just saw a very desolate, children just sitting, not even playing, just sitting, not even interacting with each other. And that's when we realized that if children are not allowed to be children, then we really need to come together and work really with the government who's responsible in taking care of them to make this a child-friendly home and a child-friendly space.
And to do the work, there could have been two ways you could have gone. One is you can fight it, you can talk about it, and you can say how terrible it is and let journalists come write about it. But the path you chose is a little different. So tell us about what you decided to do.
In all of our work, I realized when I was talking to Lakshmi that time and again, what has helped us kind of shift our work or created disruption in our work is something that the community or children have told us. And that's taken us, taken us back, and we've had to rethink our strategy, because as an organization, non-profit and NGO, you have your impact numbers, everything is going fine, you feel you're in a good place. But for example, when we were working in these institutions, we were conducting children's sessions, psychosocial sessions, so art therapy, dance therapy, working with a group of 75 children. We were the only organization allowed in 14 homes in Mumbai to do this intensive work, and it was great. It felt great. We was reaching a certain point of success. But when we were once doing an art therapy session with a child, we asked, the general ask was, what do you want your institution to be like? And the child drew on top was how the institution was, with bars like a jail, and the below one was a little more fun and peaceful environment. And then when we asked him, he said, we don't come from backgrounds of luxury where we've had all these kind of facilities or services. We've come from difficult backgrounds to begin with, and then to be put in this space that is jail-like is just not right for us. We don't want like 10 bathrooms and 100 bats and balls to play with. Why can't this institution be run like an ashram instead of a jail? And that's what he had depicted in his drawing. And he said, all we want is for people to speak to us like we're human beings, not just a Billa number, like Billa number 333, but just to know my name and spend 5 minutes talking to me. And that's when we realized that beyond just working with the children in those groups, we had to work at a systemic level, work with the frontline workers, the government, the caretakers, work on the entire institution's infrastructure, services, and most importantly, work with the institution and the government to make it a child-friendly space.
And the other thing, as you continued, is that you had another child say something to you about not just how they are treated there, but another aspect which took a shift in your work. So tell us about that.
So again, we worked, again our program was going very well. We were across 100 institutions in Maharashtra. The government of Maharashtra, the Secretary of Women and Child Development had given us this go ahead to go to all these homes and assess them, monitor them. It was going very well. And then once actually, again when we were doing a session, a lot of our work, in all of our work, we keep going back to the children and asking them, what do you feel? How is this benefited? What would you rather do if you were in our place? If you were in the superintendent's place, what would you do? And when we said, okay, we're coming into this institution, we're doing all this work, has it benefited? They said, yeah, it's very good now. I'm not locked up at night anymore. I can use the bathroom. I don't get beaten up. You all have worked with the staff. All that is great. But actually, I don't even want to be here. Where were you earlier? In my community, I didn't even want to come here into a children's institution. I wanted to be back at home. This is too late for me, actually. It's very well that you're doing this, but it's a bit late in my life. I wish you had come to me earlier. And that's when we realized that when we were doing this post-harm work in rescue homes, it was very important for us also to begin prevention work back in the communities. And that's when, after a few years of working in these homes, we started working in communities, what we call hotspots. Currently, we're in 6 states, 39 communities, where children are vulnerable of being trafficked, sold, forced labor, bonded labor, child marriage. So that's how we started working with adolescent girls, boys, and their families, as well as the government services at the local community level.
And I think, what stood out for me is that your commitment to work with the government, because you don't want to be their enemy, then they'll stop access to all the things. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, it's a philosophical decision as an organization that we took. It's very tough to work with the government. We all know a lot of and I've seen nowadays everybody's understanding that the government is responsible and we need to work with them. At that point, working in the government home, getting that access, jeopardizing that, and actually taking the bad news was very tough. But philosophically, we took a stand. We said, there is this whole kind of cohort of activists who are doing their work, filing PILs, taking the legal recourse. But what happened is they lost touch with the home and with the children, because as soon as the government realized, they stopped access of that organization to come in and work with the children at all. Again, the children were left. High Court committee said all this needs to be done, but nobody saw if it was actually being done. So we took a position that we will work from within the system. It's a very tough one, but we will work from within the system, not be insiders and okay with everything that's going on, and facilitate the change from there. So motivate the staff, capacity build with them, help them in ways to understand that when you were a child, would you have liked this? If not, then what would you have liked? And start from that genesis, that place of their childhood, and really work on the whole kind of their interaction, their belief, and them essentially, I keep saying, they are parents and caregivers to 200, 100 children at a time. We find it tough to parent even one child. So we can imagine how handling 200 children is. But so it's a difficult task, and they do need support, and not just technical support. They need support to understand, how am I supposed to deal with all this? Right now we're working in a home in Devnar where there are girls who are trafficked from all over. And there is one probation officer. A lot of my staff's time goes in actually working with her, because she says, looking at all these traumatic cases, I can't sleep at home. I can't come back to the institution. I need some support. So it's really being there with the frontline workers, also with the government level, to actually help them hear what the child is saying. They are very interested, I have realized, in what children are saying, what the ground level is saying, rather than what a report as a management team we come up with indicators and stuff.
No, I think, and by choosing that job, they are interested in making a difference if someone makes it happen. So my last question to you is, I talked earlier about how some things that happen in our childhood sort of stay with us. When you're very young, you're working in a job that's very, disheartening at times, and there is you hear terrible stories more than the positive stories. So what is it that happened to you that made an impression on you to do this at such a young age?
I've said this story sometimes earlier, but I had an experience like a lot of us in Mumbai and in a lot of metro cities have. At a traffic signal, I saw a traffic cop kind of shuffling up a young child and taking him towards the police van. And I went back home and I asked my mom, I said, I saw this, what to do? And I think she was really busy, didn't have the time. She said, why don't you ask the police themselves what they were doing? Don't bother me. So I took it literally and I started calling up. I called 100 and I told them what my problem is. Sweetly, they directed me. I realized that something called a children's home. Now I know it's called a children's home. That time I didn't even know. They said Matunga ghar hai bachcho ka, where it was a children's jail or something, they said. I took the address, I followed up and I went there and I realized this is a children's home where children who are accused of committing crimes are brought in and they're kept there separately from children who are lost, abandoned, runaway, trafficked. And I started going there. This is when I was 16 and I met a lot of children. And that kind of experience stayed with me. But I also realized I was just 16 and there's no way I can do anything about this right now. I promised myself I'll come back to this someday. But then I went on with my life. From a Gujarati background, I said, okay, now the pressure was to study and make some life.
Make some money.
Make some money. And so I followed, I studied economics and all of that. And then I joined a course called Social Communication and Media, where my visiting faculty, Suparna, is the founder actually of Angan Trust. And after the course finished, she called me. I had by then started working in public relations for Procter & Gamble. And she called me and she said, I'm starting this NGO. Would you like to come and help or volunteer or join? I said, actually I have my own concept of an NGO that I have had an experience that I'd like to kind of maybe be involved in. And she said, okay, because we work with children in homes and that's what we're interested in. And I said, that's exactly what I'm interested in. So it was really a circle of destiny that brought us together. And since then, it's been a journey where we've been listening to children's voices and hoping that everybody understands it.
And I think, what gives me a lot of hope is that there are our children who are born in plenty, who are born with a silver spoon in their mouths, have that, and to choose to do this is truly a choice. So it's really wonderful to see what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you very much.